StarCitizen is known for its vast immersive universe where players can explore both planets, moons, and even space stations, where we have access to a multitude of ships ranging from small to large. But when it comes to land vehicles, things aren't always operating as smooth as they should be. Hi, I'm Jim. Today we're going to be discussing land vehicles, why they suck, and possible ways to make them suck less. Let's dive into it. Visually, land vehicles in StarCitizen, much like their ship counterparts, are actually pretty cool and interesting, at least conceptually. The level of detail, the variety, and the promise of utility that they bring to the game is undeniable. I believe often, with most cases, they'll likely be the entry point for many of the in-game career paths that will become available as CIG continues the development of the game. But when we shift our focus to their functionality and the gameplay experience that they offer today, it's clear they're not in a great place right now. And it's easy to worry or even wonder if that will ever change. First off, let's talk about the handling of these vehicles. One of the biggest issues with land vehicles is their interaction with the terrain. The planetary surfaces in StarCitizen are initially procedurally generated, leading to a variety and often unpredictable terrain paths. While this adds to the game's overall aesthetic of realism and the planet's surface just look, well, interesting, but that can turn into a pretty terrible experience if you're trying to traverse the terrain with a land vehicle, unless you're using a hover bike, and even then they have their problems. Instead of navigating smoothly, they can often get stuck, flip over, or even struggle to navigate through the myriad of obstacles that they'll be encountered. And it's not just the physical terrain that can be a problem to navigate, it also can be the foliage of the planet, which again is needed if we want to have that sort of realism. But anyone who's taken an ATV or a dirt bike through the woods can tell you that trees are a problem. Pair that with the vehicle's physics and damage models, well, you're often left in a situation that can be pretty explosive. I know right now when I take a land vehicle out, especially something like a hover bike, it's always in the back of my head that I'm probably going to die. The ship or the vehicle I'm in is probably going to explode from what feels like to me completely uncontrollable events. This can make driving feel more like a gamble than it is an enjoyable experience. Now, when you throw combat into those scenarios, where precision and control are crucial, it often leads to what could only be described as undesirable outcomes. Combat with land vehicles also leaves much to be desired. The controls can feel clunky and unresponsive, where you often feel more like you're driving on a sheet of ice, making it difficult to not only maneuver effectively, but toss trying to aim into the mix, and your frustration levels can quickly max out. In a game that often showcases what's possible in their engine with regards to combat and the need for strategy, these limitations seriously undermine the role of land vehicles in ground-based operations, and will often leave players in the situation of feeling like they should have just brought an appropriate ship that can fly rather than a land vehicle. At the moment in-game, there's currently very limited use cases where a land vehicle would be a better option than almost any other spaceship in the game. Why limit myself to a ground vehicle when I can just hover above the ground in any spaceship, reach the destination faster, fewer obstacles, have more possibilities for engagement and disengagement, and overall, you're just safer in a ship. This makes land vehicles feel largely redundant, especially when you consider the added risk and frustrations of driving on the already rough terrain. Add to that the logistics of having to physically get a vehicle somewhere. Prior to 3.24, loading up a vehicle, as anyone that's done it before will know, it's a chore. It's something you have to want to do, because the game did not make it easy to accomplish. This is the sole reason that myself and likely many others have chosen Microtech as their home. The relatively close access to the garage from where the hangars were made it probably one of the easiest places to put a vehicle inside of your ship. But doing that solo wasn't that easy. It was pretty convoluted. It took a while, and honestly, it wasn't safe. Someone could have easily snuck aboard your ship while you were doing all that. But fortunately, after 3.24, I don't think that will be as much of a problem, as having the personal and instance hangars makes loading a vehicle not only much easier, but safer in general. And the time involvement to load that will come down significantly when we're able to actually bring vehicles up through the freight elevators. Now, they did significantly reduce the detection range of vehicles on the ground, which I think is a great step in the right direction, as I've always thought the ability to pick up a signature of, say, a yellow jacket from inside my ship from over 5,000 meters away was problematic, to say the least. But let's use Jumptown as an example of an event that could benefit largely from land vehicles, but it would require that CIG make some modifications to the event to make them at all relevant. Since the whole point of Jumptown is essentially a King of the Hill style gameplay, where the winners that hold Jumptown get to profit by holding control of the location, let's make some sort of console somewhere on Jumptown, perhaps even leaving it exposed outside of a structure, where once activated, it places a large shield over the entirety of the location. And so long as the players trying to hold Jumptown keep the shields active through either some continued mechanic like as simple as pressing a button, or honestly, I would prefer they have to keep the generator fed with fuel or something along those lines, they can now have protection from someone just doing a random A2 or A1 bombing run. If someone wants to challenge the control of Jumptown, it will take an actual landing party with either an equal or greater amount of logistics to claim the location for themselves. This would force players to leave the comfort of our ships and would reward them for those that are willing to put in the effort to claim or hold Jumptown. It's going to take some type of large change mechanically like this to make land vehicles at all viable, either through additional anti-air. Maybe you could just add towers around that once someone has it, the towers shoot at ships but don't shoot at land vehicles. That would also work. I don't think it would work as well because you can still take towers out with ships. But it's going to take some major structural changes to the game to make land vehicles at all viable. And to be fair to CIG, they have made some strides in improving the experience. As I stated, they did make a definite reduction in the signature size and the detection range of land vehicles. They've also told us at some point they're completely aware they're going to have to redo to all of the code that has to handle with how the suspension geometry on the vehicles operates. But the potential for StarCitizen is immense. I think that's the main draw for all of us to the game, and the land vehicles could play a significant role in that vision. But until they're able to address the issues of the terrain handling, the physics, ships just randomly blowing up, the combat utility, until all of these issues are addressed, they will just remain frustrating, and honestly, they're going to remain largely an overlooked part of the game. Many of the people currently that buy these land vehicles when they first come out are really buying LTI tokens more so than they are buying an individual vehicle. And now, of course, that's not true for all land vehicles, as I do think a large number of people bought the Nursa specifically for having access to a med bay outside of a ship like a Cuddy Red or a Carrack or the 890 Jump. But at current, there's only a handful of land vehicles that have practical in-game uses, and that simply has to change. So what do you think? Do you agree with land vehicles need more work? Or have you had a different experience from mine? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this style of video, don't forget to give me a like or a sub. And as always, see you in the verse.